It's interesting, they have this idea, the younger generation, maybe every generation does, that just because something is new makes it better. And that's not true. New is not synonymous with better.
But you're sounding like an old-fashioned conservative.
Okay.
And the left,
Yes.
you know, decries you, and then the left likes you when you say something bad about Trump.
And this is one of our big problems, is that we're all in our bubbles. We are all in our media bubbles, and so many people just want to hear coming back to them what they already believe in an echo chamber. You mentioned Ronald Reagan. Famously, he used to have a drink at the end of the day, often with Tip O'Neill, who was the leader in the House and the Democrat. But they were just two Irish pals who could get together and have a scotch at the end of the day. And they knew they weren't going to get along on many issues, but they didn't hate each other. They could drink together. That is inconceivable today. Can you imagine Joe Biden having...
Bill Maher just dropped the mic and the internet is buzzing. After weeks of catching heat for simply meeting with Donald Trump, Maher finally responded, and trust us, it wasn't quiet. In a sharp, no-holds-barred monologue, the legendary comedian called out his critics for double standards, surface-level outrage, and the growing resistance to open discussion. This wasn't just a reply, it was a performance with impact, and yes, we've got every fiery second lined up. So buckle up, grab the popcorn, and let's roll the clips.
I'm going to call it out wherever I see it. I mean, there are things that have to do with, you know, gender and race and free speech and just ideas about, you can be healthy at any weight, and gender is always a social construct, and maybe we should give communism another try, and maybe we should get rid of capitalism and the border patrol, and let's tear down statues of Lincoln and get rid of the police. Just, no. It's not that I've gotten old, it's that your ideas are stupid, okay?
Common sense is still common sense.
Yes, common sense is common sense, and I'm going to call it out wherever it is on this.
Maher's opening shot landed directly on the far-left critics, the same voices claiming he turned his back on them by meeting with Donald Trump. But instead of backing down or offering a soft apology, Maher fired back with straight talk. He argued their views and actions no longer line up with everyday logic or reality, and he didn't hold back. He took aim at rigid loyalty tests, public shaming culture, and the echo chamber mindset dominating parts of the progressive space. It was bold, unfiltered, and sharp. You could almost hear the reactions ripple through social media. Some expected a peace offering, a nod to unity, but what they got was a verbal spotlight on the contradictions. Maher came prepared with facts, reasoning, and a message that cut through the noise. The moment was quick, intense, and long overdue.
Well, I think the basis of it is we started to hate each other. I mean, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. Famously, he used to have a drink at the end of the day, often with Tip O'Neill, who was the leader in the House and the Democrat. But they were just two Irish pals who could get together and have a scotch at the end of the day. And they knew they weren't going to get along on many issues, but they didn't hate each other. They could drink together. That is inconceivable today. Can you imagine Joe Biden having a drink with Mike Johnson? It just would never happen. When you hate people, you don't listen to them. So it doesn't matter how reasonable they might be.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I'm siding with Maher on this one. Sure, both sides deal with division, but the left's version, it's become downright draining. We're talking about a level of belief enforcement that borders on extreme. Remember when some progressive voices publicly claimed they wouldn't even date anyone who voted differently? Not debate them, just outright reject them. That's not political awareness. That's filtering relationships through a checklist. And just weeks ago, we showed that viral clip of a woman calling off her wedding. Yes, wedding, because her fiancé didn't speak out enough on social justice issues. He wasn't against them, just not vocal, and that was enough to be labeled a problem. This isn't just political anymore. It's moral perfectionism pretending to be principle.
I mean, they're wrong and the kids are crazy. It's interesting, they have this idea, the younger generation, maybe every generation does, that just because something is new makes it better. And that's not true. New is not synonymous with better.
But you're sounding like an old-fashioned conservative.
Okay. I heard a couple of people say, or maybe they wrote it online, that, well, I'm a hypocrite because you were for the demonstrators in 1968 or whatever it was when they were demonstrating against the Vietnam War. Yeah, that was very different. First of all, the students weren't against their own. These students were threatening other students. That didn't happen in the Vietnam War. And being against the Vietnam War made sense. It was a war that we probably should not have been in.
But let me ask you.
This is demonstrating and protesting for a terrorist group. I mean, Hamas is...
Well, to be fair, a lot of students aren't doing that. There are a lot of outside,
Trying to compare the Vietnam War to the conflict in Palestine right now is like comparing apples to hand grenades. It just doesn't work. I honestly don't get how some people miss the difference. The Vietnam War was a controversial and avoidable conflict that many believe the U.S. should have stayed out of. So when Maher supported anti-war protests back then, it made sense. It was a stand against unnecessary involvement. But today, the situation involves a militant group known for violent attacks on civilians in Israel. And still, some expect Maher to show support, as if that kind of chaos should be excused. When he doesn't echo those expectations, they label him a hypocrite. Seriously, that's not meaningful advocacy. They're just upset he's not repeating their talking points.
Moaning and railing about that on my show because I tore Merrick Garland a new one a couple of weeks ago because I think the Democrats blew it, as they always do with this kind of stuff, because they've had 4 years. What was all the delay about? Why are we coming to the end? Of course they're going to try to run out the clock, and they did. And so if this is the only one, the one they probably shouldn't have brought anyway, or if they did, it was really a election law violation trial that should have been tried nationally on a federal level, and it wound up to be falsifying business records on the state level. So it's already in the wrong court. And why didn't Garland bring this earlier federally, or why aren't any of these being wrapped up in 4 years?
As expected, Bill Maher didn't hold back. He lit into the Democratic Party, calling out what he sees as their stumbles and lack of courage during Biden's presidency. Many Democrats have been quick to blame Maher for their election setbacks. Why? Because he tells it like it is and refuses to stick strictly to party lines. They claim his constant criticism of the far left caused division and discouraged voters. But Maher pushed back hard, making it clear that it wasn't his commentary that cost them votes. It was their disconnect from everyday Americans. He said it's not the critiques that hurt, it's the refusal to adapt. Maher didn't drive voters away, the party's own tunnel vision did. He's just holding up a mirror, and they can't stand the reflection. Instead of taking the opportunity to reset, they target the person pointing it out. But here's the truth: when the left turns on its own, the only ones who benefit are their rivals. Even when his longtime friend Larry David called him out for meeting with Trump, Maher didn't stay silent.
It's been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews, like that should kind of be in its own place in history. And, I know people can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start.
Absolutely. Comparing anyone to historical figures known for extreme atrocities isn't just careless, it's deeply disrespectful. Some names stand alone in history because of the overwhelming harm they caused, and those tragedies should never be reduced to political insults. Tossing around such comparisons casually not only disrespects the victims but also undermines the seriousness of those historical events. Bill Maher made it clear he believed Larry David's remarks went too far. This wasn't just a disagreement. Maher saw it as an emotional overreach, missing the mark on thoughtful critique. In his view, if David had a genuine issue, it should have been directed with more care and accuracy. This wasn't constructive feedback. It felt more like a personal attack wrapped in dramatic outrage, and Maher wasn't about to let that slide.
Well, I really feel like one of the themes of the book is, and in my show all the time, I'm just saying, you can hate Trump, you can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country, okay? And I mean, look, no one was harder on Trump or will be harder on Trump, and I think I was out front on predicting he was not going to leave office. But you can't change people's minds like that. Sometimes they just like a guy, and I also concede that there are so much goofiness also on the left, right, that I do understand why people go, yeah, Trump is crazy and we don't really like him, but you know what? What you're selling scares me.
It's honestly disappointing and a bit confusing that some on the left still don't see where things may have gone off track, let alone make changes. Bill Maher has often described himself as a centrist, someone who tries to stay grounded in the middle. He once proudly embraced the liberal label, but over time he's admitted he barely recognizes the current version of that side. So he's adjusted, at least that's how he sees it. But let's be honest, to some of us it looks like he's slowly edging closer to the right. Remember, Maher used to be relentless when calling out conservatives, sharp, bold, no holding back, but lately his critiques of the right have mellowed, while his strongest critiques seem focused on the left. Some say it's just him holding his own side accountable, hoping to steer it back. But others, myself included, feel his views are drifting more rightward. And if it keeps going, it might not be long before he aligns more with conservative ideas. Not because he switched sides, but because he feels like the side he used to support moved away from him.
Decries you, and then the left likes you when you say something bad about Trump.
And this is one of our big problems, is that we're all in our bubbles. We are all in our media bubbles, and so many people just want to hear coming back to them what they already believe in an echo chamber.
Most America is in the center, but you don't see that in the media.
Yes, you don't often see this in mainstream media, and there's a reason why. The media world has become deeply divided, with many big outlets jumping on the Democratic bandwagon. Instead of aiming for balance or nuance, they've chosen sides. The result? Constant praise for their allies and harsh, sometimes over-the-top criticism for their opponents. That's why it was so surprising when Anderson Cooper spoke out about this. Let's be real, CNN has been one of the biggest players here. Since Trump came down that escalator in 2015, CNN acted like an anti-Trump command center. Objectivity took a backseat and reporting turned into activism. For years, they pushed stories that stirred division, all while acting like the voice of reason. Even Maher called them out on his show for it.
Bear show. And he said something like, you guys at CNN just report the news straight. And the crowd burst into laughter. Look, I'm on CNN now. I guess we're on it right now. I mean, they show this show the next night. I don't know how we get away with it with all the but they.
If Cooper's finally admitting this reckoning is overdue, maybe it's a sign even the biggest media voices are starting to question the monster they helped build. But let's be honest, as long as Donald Trump holds political power, honest and fair reporting from places like CNN and MSNBC isn't coming soon. Why? Their dislike for him goes beyond politics. These outlets didn't just oppose Trump after he took office. They opposed him before day one, before any policy, before the oath. That feeling hasn't cooled. If anything, it's gotten stronger. Instead of fair coverage, they frame every headline, every segment, every panel with a heavy anti-Trump bias. It's not reporting, it's storytelling. They twist facts, leave out context, and use emotional words to keep viewers in fear and outrage. This isn't journalism anymore, it's an ideological echo chamber pretending to be news. Maybe Bill Maher isn't shifting right, he's standing firm while the left drifts into extremes. His blunt honesty, once praised, now offends the crowd that cheered him. He's not afraid to call out double standards, even if it means losing old friends. The media may ignore it, and critics may attack, but Maher's message is clear. Truth has no political label. As long as angry mobs control the story, voices like his, unfiltered, fearless, and real, will be not just needed, but vital. That wraps up today's video. If you liked it, hit like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and see